Hey everyone! Welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today I'm going to be talking about how change comes when you realize that you don't need to change the world tomorrow. I really enjoyed this week's conversation and had a lot of fun with it, so I'm excited to get started with this episode. My guest this week is Charlie Hillman, and he identifies himself broadly as a creative, and he's dabbled in poetry and writing, as well as, most recently, getting really involved in and learning about the non-fungible token, or NFT space, in order to make it more accessible for young people. So, without further ado, let's get started with this episode featuring Charlie Hillman.
So I'm Charlie. I'm a freshman in college right now, and I've always sort of just considered myself to be a creative. So, throughout high school, that meant writing poetry, which eventually turned into a book that I self-published. And I've always just been super fascinated in content and have dabbled, in that over the years. And now something I'm super passionate about is the NFT space and Web3 in general. And I've noticed a really high barrier of entry for our generation in particular. So I think, I've been exploring that whole space over the past 9-10 months. And something that I'm really excited about moving forward is, I actually plan on starting a podcast as well. And I recently started a Discord, and, I'm trying to move the needle for our generation and make every young person sort of aware of the Web3 space and the opportunities that lie ahead. So I've always I guess tried to be somewhat of an early adopter and recognize things early on and figure out how can I make our generation more aware of that, and how can I relay that information to them in the most digestible way possible. So that's a little bit about me and what I'm working on, what I'm passionate about, and super excited.
Thank you so much for sharing some of your background, Charlie, and I am really excited to talk more with you about NFTs because I really don't know much about them. So, as you're talking about NFTs and making them more accessible to Gen Z and to other young people, I would love to get started by having you give me some sort of a beginner's guide to NFTs, or like an NFTs 101 for my own understanding and for anyone listening who may not know that much about the topic. Can you give me a quick summary about what NFTs are and why we should know about them?
Totally, yeah. It's definitely a super complicated world, and it was a little bit easier for me to grasp it just because I've been investing in cryptocurrency for a few years, so it was sort of a natural progression. But all right, so NFTs, I guess the 101, it stands for non-fungible token. And the concept of something being fungible versus non-fungible is its ability to be transferred, be replicated. And the power of an NFT, a non-fungible token, is that, when you own it, it's yours. And it's your unique token ID that you own. So the way that I tell people about it is, it's really just a digital collectible. It can be anything. It can be an artwork. It can be an avatar. That most projects coming out now are 10,000 different like generative avatars. And it can be a song. It can be a tweet. Like there's so many different things that it can be. And the main sort of principle of it is it runs on something called a blockchain, which in simpler terms is a digital ledger. So take the Ethereum network, for example. Every single transaction that is made using Ethereum, so whether that's you sending Ethereum to a friend, or you going on OpenSea, which is the main marketplace to trade NFTs, and buying an NFT there, that all goes onto this digital ledger. It's written to the blockchain, and it's permanent. And that's super cool because no one really controls it. That's what it means for it to be completely decentralized. So it's not controlled by a bank, it's not controlled by the government. It sort of just runs on its own. So basically, what I've been doing for the past 9 or 10 months is sort of just keeping an eye out constantly for really cool up and coming projects, projects that are, paving the way for, minorities and women, specifically, women-led projects. It's been super exciting, and I've been lucky enough to have a little bit of success in it. And the goal in probably sometime in 2023 would be to launch my own NFT project. So I hope that was a little bit simple to understand. I recognized while I was talking that there might be a few things that I said that could have been a little bit confusing, but that's sort of the gist of it.
No, I think that was a great start, and I think it was a pretty simple explanation of a pretty complicated topic, like you said. So, thank you for doing that. I'd also love to know more about how you see this technology shaping the future, and especially for Gen Z as we're getting older and living with this technology. Just tell me more about your predictions for the future and how this could impact our lives.
Yeah. So one thing that I think is definitely coming a lot sooner than we think. I think NFTs are sort of going to shape the way for the future of social media, and this is, probably 3-5 years down the line. It's definitely something that OpenSea is already working on, I'm sure. But my thesis, and I was talking about this with a couple of friends yesterday. I think that OpenSea is going to become the new, popular form of social media. I think if you look at Instagram and, you scroll down your feed and you see, what everyone's up to, where they're on vacation, what they're thinking about, if it's, a more casual Instagram page, and you sort of just see what everyone's up to. And I think that pretty soon, whether it's OpenSea, which I think would make the most sense, or whether it's a new platform, I think NFTs are going to become a new form of social media where, you can follow your friends or you can follow celebrities and you can see the transactions that they're making in the NFT space. You can see what they're buying, what they're selling, what they're potentially gifting to people. Like, I think that's the power of the transparency of Web3 and the blockchain. So I think in terms of social media, that's definitely where I see us being headed in, 2025, 2026, something like that. It's coming up a lot sooner than we think. So I think NFTs are definitely going to take on a new form with this, new digital age of social media. And another thing, I think as more and more people learn about NFTs, and we see more and more courses, and it just becomes more widely accessible, I think a lot of just, regular people like you and I that aren't necessarily, celebrities or, billionaires who are able to invest in any NFTs they want. I think it's going to become a lot easier for people to launch projects. And I really see NFTs as being a way to make change. I think there's a lot of ways that can happen. It can be, charity components. It can be, just helping minorities have a voice. And, I think there's a lot of really unique ways, and we're already starting to see some of it with a few really cool projects. But, I think overall it will become a lot more accessible, and people will be able to launch their own projects, with their own missions, and they'll be able to affect change truly how they want.
That's really interesting, and I didn't realize how social this all was. And I completely agree that this could be a way for people to connect with one another and make change. So, thank you for explaining all of that. I would also love to know more about the podcast that you mentioned. So, can you tell me more about what you're talking about on there? Give me the whole scoop on that project.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm super excited about it. Don't want to give too much, but basically the gist of it is, as I mentioned before, I definitely recognize that, most of our generation, I would say, is not super aware of the ins and outs of NFTs and the world of Web3 and how everything, sort of works and how to navigate that space. And I think, being a 20-year-old who does consider himself to be aware of that space and to have relationships in the space, I think I have a unique opportunity to, really, really make some people aware of NFTs and to just to create a really, really fostering community that sort of, is for beginners, is for experts, is for, people in between, and just create a safe space for people to learn about NFTs and to not be judged, and to hopefully explore, maybe buying some themselves, and just learning about that world. And that's definitely what I'm trying to do with my Discord, is just build a community of people who, like me, are interested in learning about it, and creating that safe space to just promote positivity and learning and growth. So I think that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast as well. And we'll hopefully have on some pretty cool guests who have been in the space for a while that can break down their experiences and their thoughts and their predictions and their upcoming projects, and ultimately just create a space for our generation to learn about Web3 in a very unintimidating way.
Definitely. And I love that you're motivated to educate more people about this whole world of NFTs and other technology, because I think it's true that not that many people know that much about these topics, and it's going to be really important to understand in the future. So, might as well get started now. I have one last question for you. Lots of young people, particularly college students, high school students, want to create change. They want to make a difference, but they may not know how or where to get started. Do you have any advice for those people who may be listening?
Yeah, I do. So I think, I was that person for a while. I was in high school and didn't really know what my purpose was, didn't know how I could affect change, but I knew that somewhere inside me was a voice. I just wasn't sure how to get it out. And I think, at that time I was very focused on big picture and, changing the world. And there wasn't any in between for me. It was either I was voiceless or I was a voice for millions of people. And I think that's what caught me up a little bit. And that's why, I had a period of, not being super productive and being very scared to speak out and to try and enact change in the way I wanted to. And, I think when I realized that, I don't need to change the world tomorrow. I can start taking little steps, and that can end up making all the difference. And I had a really cool experience where I had recently self-published my book in July of 2020, and after I shipped them out, I ended up getting not a crazy amount of messages, maybe 4 or 5 DMs from people who had just read through the book, and they said, wow, I never knew that someone could, so perfectly describe how I've been feeling for so long, or, this book really made me feel less alone. Uh, you know, so in my mind, that was sort of my way of enacting change. And from there, I realized that it really is just little steps. And, when they say Rome wasn't built in a day, it's super true. And I never really grasped that until recently. So I guess my message would just be, you don't need to change the world tomorrow. Start by changing the minds of the people around you, or, talk to a stranger and make their day. And you never know how that will trickle down. So I guess my one piece of advice is, nothing is too small. And if something feels intimidating, just start in your immediate circle. Start with the low hanging fruits. And that doesn't mean that, you're taking the easy way out. It just means that, you're using the resources around you, and you never know how that will change, millions of people's lives, just starting with one person.
I really enjoyed this conversation with Charlie, and I think he has a great vibe. I especially appreciated being able to learn about NFTs and that whole world of technology because it's going to be a really important part of the future, and Charlie is absolutely right that people just don't know that much about these topics. I'm excited to see where Charlie goes with his work, but I also appreciated his advice about not rushing the change making process. So many people feel like they need to take a big leap and make a big change in a day, but that mindset just adds unnecessary pressure to the situation. It's much more important to recognize that change, especially meaningful and lasting change, takes time. And if that change is worth it, it's going to take time and it's going to take work. It won't just happen overnight. So, I think we can all take Charlie's advice because change comes when you realize that you don't need to change the world tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can connect with Charlie on Instagram at Charles Hillman. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at bethechangepodcast. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.